And looks like we're recording. Mazel.
Perfect.
Do you have a mazel tov? Do you have a thing like mazel tov in the non-Jewish world?
No, just a hello.
All right. Yeah, mazel tov is not a hello. That's a shalom. Mazel tov is sort of like a congratulations.
Oh, okay.
It's like a cheerful kind of congratulations.
Yeah, I guess we just have congratulations then.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, I don't really have. Yeah, I don't. Or can't think anything that we actually have that sounds as cool.
Yeah, let's see. My Hebrew is not up to date enough to know what it actually means in words, just like what the general idea of it is. Tov is
Yeah.
good, and I guess mazel is like blessings, so it's like good blessings, but the way it's said is like a congratulations. So that's good. All right, good. I know that we tried to get this thing done how many times now?
Yeah, it's
A month of getting a microphone and multiple like Amazon events sitting in between us and the first attempt, and then scheduling and even this week, it's like today's busy, and
yeah. Well, even 30 minutes before this meeting started, I thought I was going to have to miss it because a call came in that was one of those where you either attack it now or tag it later, and so we're going to push it to next week. But it was one that could have overlapped into this one, so I was adamant that this was going to happen. Though I've said no.
It's so interesting. Do you have like a regular way that you decide what's now and what's later? Like some people will say time, some people will say importance. Like I don't know. And of course, I imagine there's a billion different issues, and all of them get attacked differently. But like,
it's priority. It's priority. Yeah. It depends. Well, first of all, it depends on who it's coming from, right? That's step one. And then step two is you got to put it in the priority list, and if it's in the top 10, then you pay attention to it. If it falls below top 10 priority, then that's a next week type of thing,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I just sort of instinctively looked at it. But whenever I talk to people and I hear them talk about how they do things, I always want to understand how people do things because I sort of feel myself like I do everything wrong. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't do everything wrong, but I feel like I do everything wrong. And I feel like almost everybody else has their stuff buttoned up. So I'm like, hey, how do you do that? How do you answer all your emails in 20 minutes? I can't do that.
No. The practice of if two emails come in with the same request, probably need to address it. But if it's a first email and it's low priority, then sometimes that email just has to get skipped over because there's business to be done, and then there's tasks to be done, and then there's certain deadlines and all that good stuff. So for instance, the budget that I'm working on now, I've got till the end of the week to do it. Well, the end of the week is Friday, right? So I got one day to go. So I'll be,
right.
That immediately moved up my priority list.
So this probably goes to a first question almost. Even before we do like hellos and introductions and who are yous, when you talk about a budget, when it comes to Amazon, what things are in your budget? Like most businesses just sort of run, their expenses come up as they come up. You might sort of say, hopefully this costs me this much or something, but budgets are a little bit of a foreign thing. And I know you work within an organization, so I imagine budgets are sort of differently handled and differently thought about. So what does a budget look like for you?
So a budget really starts with with a little bit of hope, right? So you take from a revenue standpoint, we know what products we have, we know what products we're going to add, and we come up with a stretch goal. The financial term is a budget, but it's a stretch goal to try and maximize your growth, right? So everybody's got a growth strategy. We have a growth percentage that we have to hit. But then from there, you kind of work through, with sales comes fees, comes shipping costs. You've got to work all that through. And then you get down to a gross profit, right? Once you've gone through the revenue, the fees, the shipping, the cost of the item. Now you've got a gross profit of what you actually have left over to pay the bills with employees, consulting fees. When it comes to these third-party marketplaces, Amazon, Walmart, it's not just the people that you have; it's all the applications that come with it that have a cost. And then, not to mention rent and, just the general business expenses that come with it. So then you got to break that down into a month. And at the end of it, you're hoping for, a certain percentage op income. My call this morning was, okay, you're at this percentage. We need you to double that. so, that's not the fun part when you get that call, but you know what? That's part of being in an organization, trying to figure out how to maximize that with different opportunities. So, that's really where you start is your product, and then you sort of back in all the expenses that come with it. And, you have a certain expectation of history versus what you can do in the future.
So you don't start with the number you want to hit and try to figure out how to build towards it?
So we have historical numbers, so we certainly don't go backwards, right? So we always have a number that we have in mind from current year, and then we look at a percentage, right? That's typically what we do is, hey, we're looking for an X percent, whether it's 10% growth, 15%, 30%, based on product lines that you're either A, adding, or B, if you don't have products that you're adding, you're looking to maximize what you already have. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily come up with a number to hit and then back in. We've got to look at what we've got historically and then have a growth pattern from there.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm hearing it in a different way. Like
Okay.
the way I'm hearing it is you are starting with a number. Now you have a basis for the number. You're not pulling it out
Yeah.
of the hat, but
No.
you are starting with a number, and the number you're starting with is 10% more than the month before, 15% more than the year before, whatever your percentage is. But that is a
Mhm.
number you're starting with. And then you're saying, all right, well, how do we get there? Which
Sure.
pieces of growth will allow for that? Where do I have to pull a new thing into the mix? And where do I have growth with my existing things?
Mhm.
It's funny, I'm hearing this and I'm hearing a different word. Like to my mind, I'm hearing the word projections. So that's what I would well, yeah, there's probably even a third term. Like a projection is if all of the pieces are in place, this is what we think it's going to do.
Yep.
A budget is sort of a management of dollars and stuff. And this is a mix of both. So number one, you are trying to get to a number. Number two, you are managing the pieces within it.
Yep.
But there's elements of both in that, I guess.
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, ultimately, what you have to do every time you go into a budget is you've got things you're trying to do, right? You may have 5 projects that you're working on that will maximize your potential, and you plan on 3 to 4 of those working out. Now, what reality says is maybe 2 or 3 of those projects will actually net expectations. So a budget is essentially built on, it's a guesstimate of what your potential is. So you want to hit your budget, you want to be close to your budget, or in fact, hopefully go over your budget. But when you've got projects like that, 5, 6 different projects that are going to help you, that's where that sort of projection comes in, because we don't really know. We don't know if they're going to be executed, have time to execute it, be able to execute on time. You plan a Q2 execution and it ends up being a Q4 execution. Well, you just wiped your entire year of revenue out. So it's part of it.
So it's interesting. I almost feel like this is the part where I have a question, but I almost feel like this is the part where we should take a step back to like sort of fill in the audience here. Right
All
now,
right.
we've been talking about a budget, but
No.
this is when we're talking about a budget, it's because your Amazon business is
Mhm.
sort of a little bit unique. Maybe not, obviously, there's probably many people that run their business like you, but also it's not the most common structure. So maybe walk us through that. Obviously, you can start off by telling us your name, which is, of course, Matt Longman, but tell
Yep.
me a little bit about what your Amazon business looks like, as
Sure.
far as like its structure and why you need such a thing as a budget that someone is telling you you need a budget by tomorrow. Like,
Okay.
how does that fit into things?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I obviously Matt Longman. I work for a Fortune 300 company. We specialize in the personal care space, and we started this project as a small idea. It was a test to see what this Amazon third party marketplace thing looked like. We sell a lot of private brands. We also sell a lot of um, private label brands, but we also sell a lot of buy box, sell a box, which is other manufacturers' products. And so when we built this, it was to see if there was an opportunity here. Well, fast forward 4 years later, and we've reached a point that it is. It's its own business unit, and it requires a budget simply because there's inventory involved. There's warehousing space involved. Staff. When you're building a budget and you've reached that kind of volume, it requires that kind of planning because one small hiccup in the finances gets you upside down quick, especially in the Amazon world when margins are very thin across the board, whether it's private label or selling other manufacturers products. So really that's why that budget is required. And also obviously when you work for a corporation, they require a budget for every step you take. So whether it's justifying employees, whether it's justifying growth and resources, I mean, really that's the ultimate reason why a budget would be required.
Interesting. So you said a bunch of things there, and each one of those things sends my brain running off in a different direction.
Good.
So the first thing is obviously you mentioned that it's you know, a good sized company, Fortune 300. For those who don't know, if you put the word Fortune in front of the name of your company, you're typically not a small business anymore.
Yeah.
And the closer you get to one, the bigger your business is. But the first question I have is when you start on day one in a large organization like this, I would imagine that they don't want to waste their time with small things. For a company that does $1 billion a year, if you tell them, "Hey, I have $1 million idea," they'll say, "Dude, we fart $1 million errors on our line report. Your $1 million idea is not worth any effort."
Yeah.
So what potential were you discussing with them, as far as what that would look like to make it worthwhile? Now, of
Yep.
course, when you say the words Amazon, I imagine that's not the same as a vague $1 million idea. Obviously, most people understand Amazon is a piece of business you want to have,
Yep.
but like, how do you discuss with them what their potential might be? How interested were they? And
Yep.
I guess the first connected question is that is, I understand you have a budget now. Obviously, you have last month's sales, you have last year's sales, you have numbers to go by. But
Sure.
on day one, what are they committing to you? Are they
Mhm.
saying, well, we're going to give you $1 million and utilize it and turn it into 10? Or are they saying, here, we're going to give you $100. Let's see, grow and suffer and somewhere in between? Like, what does it look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So I wish it were that easy of give me $1 million and see what I can do with it. No, that's not how it started. How it started was an idea that I had that, we had products that were in a warehouse that I passed every day and thought, certainly we could generate some added revenue for our organization and, thinking sort of outside the box and thought it was a great idea. I approached my boss at the time and he immediately said, no, we don't have time for that. And I think the next 7 or 8 times I asked him over the course of a couple of months, he said, we don't have time. So it got shot down quite a few times, but I just figured it wasn't a no forever. It was just a no right now. And eventually, talk to him about, hey, why don't we try and sell one product? I went with I'll try and sell this product, and if it doesn't sell, I'll never ask you again. And he liked that idea of never asking him again. And sometimes it's all about timing. So I put that one product up there. I still remember the day we sold that. Sold a couple of them that day, and And I thought I had struck gold. I think we sold all of $45 in product that day, and just thought I was to the moon. So,
Do you still remember what the product was?
yeah. It was a couple of gloves. It's a couple of boxes of gloves that we sold, and I honestly, I take that back. I think the first 2 or 3 days, we didn't sell anything because I didn't have any advertising. We just splashed it out there and thought, hey, maybe it's just not going to work. And a little bit of advertising, all of a sudden we kind of hit a steamroll, and that started the idea. And fast forward 6 months into that, I still didn't have a budget. I at least had the backing of a really good executive at the time that could see through the red tape of this, especially in a big organization. It's not easy to try and do new things like this when it's foreign to just about everybody. Nobody really, processes and all of those things that are what we normally do and we normally ship, and we don't ship to consumers, we ship to businesses, and all of these things that we went through of sort of I call it the red tape, but they allowed me to fly a little bit and learn. And I learned a lot through videos online and Amazon University and all that good stuff. But nothing teaches you like getting thrown in the deep end and figuring this out. So it was I don't think I had a budget, a true budget, because nobody knew what this was going to be. I didn't really have a true budget until the following year when we started to gain some traction. Again, when you're in a large company, even some traction is a tiny tiny piece of overall. It was nothing. It was very small revenue, very small. Didn't get a lot of attention, which ultimately I think helped me in the end, because I was able to stay under the radar and try things and fail a lot. And I failed pretty good. I think like I said, 6 months into the project, the account got shut down completely. We sold a product, and because we didn't have a ton of revenue and a ton of items up there and a lot of history, Amazon saw an item that we were selling and thought it was counterfeit. It was clearly not. However, they shut our account down for what felt like 3 years, but I think it was really only a couple of weeks until we cleared it up. But that was on New Year's Day. I'll never forget. I woke up on New Year's Day and trying to get somebody on New Year's Day to give me answers to a question I had no idea about. You don't go into things thinking you're going to have to deal with something like a serious word like counterfeit, and knowing that you had done everything right, but trying to explain that, it's very tough. So we learned the hard way. It probably, I'll say I've learned probably more from my mistakes than I have from my achievements. And that's one of them. Learned a lot from that experience, and learned what is expected of Amazon and what's not. And, there isn't, even at the time, there wasn't a lot of information out there about an account shutdown, or how to handle that. And took a lot of time and effort and patience, but we eventually got there.
Could you have prevented it? Like, is there anything you could have done to prevent it? Did you find out ever what the trigger was? Did some person buy a thing and say, "Oh, this doesn't look real," and they put a comment somewhere that Amazon blew up over? Like,
yeah. So clear communication with either the manufacturers that you're dealing with, or where you're getting the product from is incredibly important. We take it a step further and get letter of authorizations. That's important, because that to Amazon is sort of the green light to selling that product, or at least the first step in that. And having good communication and good contacts with the product that you're selling is highly important. You only get one shot at an Amazon account, and if they find out that you're doing something that's a counterfeit or something that's off, and they shut your account down, and for whatever reason you can't get it back open, you're sort of dead in the water. And so that, that was a fear, right? I had
Right.
just, just presented this big project to my organization that, hey, this is going to be, successful, and we're going to put our attention and focus and power into it. And then you go to zero sales for a few weeks, right? And again, luckily I had an executive that stuck by, an executive and bosses that really stuck by my side, and believed that, this was just a small time frame, and that we would be able to flip this back on and have success. And ultimately we were able to do that. But yeah, recommendation is to just have really good communication with those manufacturers, and the sourcing that you're getting, and really good documentation. Especially with certain products. I mean, when we're in the personal care space, there's certain documentation that Amazon requires that, if you don't have it, they'll immediately
You're
full
dead in the
stop
water.
on you. Yep.
So wait, are
Yep.
you selling only products from the brands of your Fortune 300 company, or are you also selling products from other companies as well?
Chris, we're doing both. We have our private label products that we sell, and that's great. That's a revenue source where we don't come across a lot of competition. But when you're selling, but we also sell, I call it the buy box, sell box, or other manufacturers' products. We also help them, get their products out on Amazon. And so when we do that, we have to have very clear communication of what we're doing, where we're selling it, how we're selling it, have invoices that, show how much we're ordering. It all has to match up, because in the event that, a customer says, hey, this doesn't look real, or whatever, whatever anybody comes up,
Or it looks counterfeit.
or it looks counterfeit. I hate that word, because especially when you're
Oh
doing it
yeah.
right and somebody throws it out there, like, oh, it's so far from the truth. But at the same time, it can happen. I mean, you're dealing with consumers that, somebody bought one that had, we especially worry about this when you have a marketing change, when the label changes, or the product the box looks different, or they do different marketing on the outside. That tends to happen, where people say, hey, last month it looked like this, and this month, it's a different product, same name, but different, so you really have to have all of those, again, documentations in place. Otherwise you're going to run the risk of coming up against huge issues with these marketplaces.
Yeah. Did your company, was it an issue, or was it a discussion point, or does the company care that you're selling things of other companies? Like, I imagine I keep talking about Diet Coke, but if somebody was selling, like, if they're starting the Amazon division of Diet Coke, I
Sure.
imagine the Coca-Cola company only wants Coca-Cola products in that
Mhm.
storefront. They
Sure.
wouldn't want something from Taco Bell, or they wouldn't want something from somebody else that's not the Coca-Cola organization.
Sure.
Was your company just perfectly okay with it, or was it a discussion point, or like, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, again, it comes back to relationships, right? So, we've got really good longstanding relationships with manufacturers, and when you have these conversations with them, it you have to you're honest with what we're trying to do. We're trying to, from a strategy standpoint of what we can do for their product. When it comes down to, whether to decide to just do private label or not, to be quite honest with you, we weren't when we started this project, we had no idea. We had no idea what this landscape would look like, with some of these products. And so we started with strictly manufacturer, other manufacturer's product. We didn't even add a private label on for a year or two before we, saw proof of concept. And we've helped a lot of manufacturers move a substantial amount of product in avenues where, they may not specialize in. And so that's where we've been able to help the most is, find opportunity, find places that they can, showcase their product, and Amazon's obviously the place to do it.
Interesting. So Oh boy, so many questions. So would you say, I think when you started this, obviously you weren't doing Amazon. You're just walking the halls or walking through the distribution center and saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is just sitting here.
Yeah.
Now, that's obviously one way to get things going.
Yep.
But if there were people listening to this who are in their own large organizations that don't have Amazon,
Yep.
how realistic would you say, or what would you suggest if someone else sees an opportunity like this in their organization? How
Yeah.
could they pitch it to their bosses and say, yo, well, hopefully they're not going to say yo unless it's a Hispanic organization. But when they say sir or boss or Bob, we're not on Amazon and this thing is sitting here, you
Yeah.
know, let's do something innovative. Like, what should
Yeah.
that conversation look like? Or what would you suggest that conversation look like for someone else?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the pitch, right? The sales pitch. I did my sales pitch no less than 8 to 10 times to my boss. So again, it doesn't always net you immediately. And sometimes you have to go back and reframe, that conversation. But honestly, if you are pitching an idea and you work for an organization that has a product that might suit, um, that product on Amazon or any third party marketplace for that matter. I think um, you know getting past the yes is step one. I think that's the easiest part of this process, is saying, hey, we've got a widget, and that widget I think can do pretty well. I think that the next step that you have to do is either A, go all in and hire expertise, which is not always the right answer, especially if you're a small company. If you're like us and you or me specifically, and you say, hey, I'm just going to learn it, right? I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to spend time outside of work learning, weekends learning, watching any video that I can get my hands on. I think that's where that's the part I would suggest anyone doing first is truly learning the landscape. I spent a lot of time before we even opened the account, just learning what this marketplace is. It's not as easy as putting your widget up there and kicking back on a beach somewhere. In fact, it's the complete opposite. It's hard work. It's constant adjusting and constant risk, and really all hours of the day and night looking at the account. And so it's not as glorious as it is sometimes made out to be, but it can be very profitable, and it can be very fulfilling as far as creating something in an organization that doesn't exist. But again, I think I would go back to the education piece. Learn as much as you can first, and then what we did was very much eased our way in. We didn't have these huge expectations. We found the right consultants, from ad agencies to database agencies to truly understand kind of where our dollars were being spent, and at the end of the day, were we even making a profit? Because I'll say at the beginning, there was times when we weren't, right. We were just testing. And so, whether you're doing this out of your garage or you're doing this in a large organization, truly understanding where your dollars are spent is important.
So, yeah, I get the part about understanding where your dollars are going. Obviously, this whole piece of conversation started off the word budget,
Yeah, of
but
course.
going back to maybe a part for me that I keep thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
When you had the first conversations and you went through your first 8 or 10 no's before you got to yes,
Yeah.
was there ever a conversation in which we said, hey, we're missing out on a massive opportunity? Or was it just, let's try a thing?
Yeah.
Because I keep going back to that thing where in my head, massive companies don't want to even waste time with a small thing. But were
Right.
you able to propose it as just a thing, or did there have to be an understanding that at some point it's going to be massive for you guys?
Yeah. So that was part of my pitch, right? You work for a large company, you see a lot of large companies out there already selling on Amazon. I don't think by any means my executive team at the company, I don't think they ever thought that, hey, there wasn't a huge opportunity here, because they've seen other industries have success. Everybody knows Amazon's out there. It's the largest place to sell your product. I think it's the idea of the unknown that was the question. I think the conversation on, hey, this could be really huge, probably happened a few hundred times before me, right? I certainly am not the first person to bring this up.
That was going to be my
Right.
next question.
Yeah.
I imagine there are brainstorming meetings and revenue generation meetings all up and down the organization. And
Of
how
course.
can the word Amazon not have come up? These people have Amazon in their stock portfolios. They have
Yeah.
news. They
Yeah.
know, some of
Yeah.
them might even be friends with people at Amazon who see these things going on. You can't have been the first person
No.
to bring
No.
up the idea that Amazon is a
No.
place to generate revenue.
No, and I've thought about that a lot. Like I'll give it to this. A little of this was luck. A lot of it was right timing, and a little of it was not giving up. Right. I had the idea, and it just so happened at the right time, at the right place, and it really became this. At the beginning when I started, I didn't think it was going to be much of anything. I think my expectations were probably lower than most, because just didn't have no clue, but I think when you put your energy and your heart into something, and you really work at it, and you really put the passion into it, it will work. I think if we talked about other organizations maybe trying this, I think half-assing something like this is there's no way to do that. You're either in it wholeheartedly, or it's not going to work. It's time to go. Right. So, I put a lot of, in my team as well, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making it work, because, it's definitely something that has to constantly be touched. And so maybe the people before me who had pitched this idea at the organization possibly just either didn't go at it with the right mindset, or the right.
They didn't try 8 times.
Maybe I'm the idiot that just kept trying, and but sometimes that's how it goes, right? I mean, sometimes you just I believed in it, and I believed in my idea, and I'm not entirely sure my boss at the time really believed in it. I think he was just sick of me asking, but it's
Listen, choose your adventure, man. The result is what counts.
The results what counts. And and we still got a long way to go. We're nowhere near perfect. We're nowhere near optimized. We're still we're 4.5 years into this, and we're still learning lessons every day. This world teaches me something quite literally every day, and Amazon is one that is constantly changing, and constantly new products, new categories that they're adding, new distribution methods. It's sort of I call it the Wild West sometimes, where you almost once you feel like you really learned something, it's time to scratch all that and learn it all over again. So
so when you started out, you told me like it took a couple of days, it took a couple of ads, which is probably warms my heart to hear, but it took a little bit of a nudge to make those first couple of orders.
yeah, a little bit.
And I know that there were the ups and downs, but what's the point at which you, and maybe different from you, what's the point at which the organization said, this is not Matt's dumb idea anymore. This is a piece of business for us. Like, what sales volume, what amount of time did you have to get to $10,000 in monthly sales? You have to get to $100,000 in monthly sales. When did they start to look at it as not just get Matt off my back?
Yeah, right. Well, I think the get off my back part happened pretty quickly. Especially when my organization sort of said, "Hey, yeah, let's look into this, right? Let's figure this out." So then my boss all of a sudden quickly turned to, yeah, of course I approve this idea.
Wait, would you say that was like 60 days, a different amount
Yeah,
of
yeah.
time?
I would say very quickly after that, I would say about 45 days in, yeah, a month and a half in is when, we really kind of got the buy-in prior to even having success.
Listen,
Um,
that's pretty quick. There's a
yeah,
million stories of like big things that
yep,
were just sitting in the closet for a while to
yeah,
get to like attention level
mhm.
within like 4 to 6 weeks. That's not bad at all. I mean, that's a testament to Amazon.
It is. It truly is, and with this came a lot of hurdles with that because there's confidentiality stuff that we had to deal with. There were only a few people that truly knew what we were doing, and
What
and
wait,
so
what is confidentiality stuff? I mean, I imagine like you can't run an advertisement on the side of your car saying what you're doing, but like
yeah.
where does confidentiality come in with the
Well,
work?
when you're doing something new like this in a big organization, you really truly want to do it right. You can't risk the other part of the business for something that we're just trying, right?
Right.
It
So
becomes
R&D
risky.
does right. So the R&D department is not supposed to know about this, or the wholesale department is not supposed to know about this, or like
Yeah, I think it's more or less you're just running under the radar for a little while until you figured out this can be a thing, right? This can be something that is truly a business unit, or and ultimately, I think we're still trying to figure that out. We found success, but I think there's still I still have to answer questions of, is this viable for long term? Is this something that so you still have to do those things, but because we are still even to this day a small, very tiny piece of that very large pie, the business can't put risk on the overall business. So you really have to be careful with every step you take. Now, if you're a small business or you have very limited product lines, or you're just doing the side of your garage, you don't really have to do that. You can be a little bit more nimble. You just kind of put this stuff out there and splash and try things. We have to in my world, I have to be a little bit more calculated in what we do with what products we put on there and all that. So from a confidential standpoint, it's more or less we really didn't want too many people outside of a small circle understanding what we were doing before it became something. If that makes sense.
right, but they were conscious of it. It wasn't just, "Hey guys, let's keep it on the down low." It was like structural. We need to keep it quiet until it's something.
Correct. Yeah, and it's important to do that. Really, kind of with anything. I mean, even if you're buying businesses, you may buy businesses that you don't want to go put out there. That's like, hey, we own them.
Oh yeah.
It's the same concept.
No,
Um,
I hear it a lot, and
yeah.
I almost feel like there's a concept in which there's two ways to look at it. On
Mhm.
one hand, if you keep a thing to yourself and just put your time into it, that's
Yep.
different than telling every Tom, Dick, and Harry, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Hey, I'm doing this thing."
Right. That's
That
exactly.
typically does not work as well. When somebody spends their nights and their weekends and they do it quietly for a long amount of time, that's
Yep.
typically when the reveal is big, you know? But the person that's, "I'm gonna tell everybody about my journey, Tom, Dick, and Harry," like
Yeah.
very rarely does that hit the same scale. The people
No.
who are focused on themselves are the people who
Mhm.
typically do the best.
Yep.
There is an idea of accountability. If someone is trying to hit a certain goal and they need external validation, maybe that's a
Mhm.
time where you tell people because you want encouragement and you want to be accountable. But when it comes
Yep.
to business, keeping it to yourself is much more of a recipe for success than telling the whole world about it.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what you mentioned one thing that I sort of wanted to maybe clarify a little bit.
Mhm.
So, on one hand, on day one or pre day one, you saw a thing, you had an idea, you wanted to sell it.
Mhm.
But also, you told me that you spent a good amount of time learning, watching
Yep.
videos, and doing other things like that.
Yep.
did all of that watching videos and stuff, was it after you had your idea to sell, or was it that you keep seeing on the internet people making money? All my Facebook groups are full of people making money as a side hustle, and you wanted to do that also? Or did you have a vague idea? There's a thing called Amazon. Obviously, tons of people are selling there. I got to jump on that, and then I'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Well, so when it comes to learning new things, if I've put my mind to it, this is a personal thing, but I try to have my team adopt this as well, and some of them absolutely have, and some folks in the past have absolutely dove into this project and bought into it. The start of this was, the idea came first, then it was, oh, he actually might say yes. I better have a little bit more backup for when I go to pitch this thing. So then it became watch those videos of, buy a widget and, make, $90,000 a month in income.
So wait, so you signed up for Amazon without watching a video. You listed a product without watching a video. You ran an ad without watching a video?
No. I before I opened the account, I watched those sort of almost get rich schemes on, which when you watch them, you can almost see straight through them. But then I stumbled across some of the YouTube, podcasts or whatever that really explained how to list an item. I mean, just basic how to list an item. At this time, I wasn't aware of Amazon University, so I was watching that. Very quickly after I opened the account, spent a few hours a day, probably
once you start getting into those screens and you start seeing a lot of options where it's not immediately clear which option to pick. That's when you realize you need some extra information that's not on the screen.
I mean, just getting the account open and approved almost needed its own video, because there's just so much information that goes through.
Did you get stuck at any point, or were you able to muck through it?
Yeah, I did. I got stuck at the time. I'm pretty sure they still do it, but they send you an envelope with a code to verify your address. They send you that code. You put the code in, your account's active. I work in a big distribution center, and so those letters would get thrown in somebody else's office, and so you miss one, and you're like, hey, it seemed a couple of days have gone by, I should probably receive this, and so I had to have that letter sent a couple of times, because we were a new we had set up a new company to do this, and so you had to prove that. There was just a couple of things on the setup portion of it that were just frustrating that I can remember, but ultimately once you get the account set up, then you're staring at it with, every tab that's on there is something new that, adding inventory, adding a listing to begin with. And not only that, the adding listings and getting approved for a specific category. Didn't know that. You thought you could just add whatever you wanted to and sell in whatever category you wanted to, and no big deal. And that's also not the case. You get stonewalled by category. So that piece of it was like, well, maybe I should take a step back and learn a few things. And at the same time, you got the boss saying, have you listed this stuff yet? So you want to deliver, so that's where I would suggest really anybody that's getting into this is become a YouTube Amazon junkie when it comes to it. Just soak up as much information as you can prior to getting in there, because ultimately, you're not going to know everything, but ultimately it gives you just a little bit of base to get into it, where, when we went into this thing, we went in with not a lot of knowledge of how to do these things. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I actually would want to push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe not push back, but maybe add something to it.
Yeah.
When you went and, first let's take a quick sec. How are you on time? Because it's like 12:53.
I'm fine. I got till like 1:30.
Okay. Yeah, I do also. All right. So that's perfect. Let me just tell the team that I had a call at one, an internal call, but I'll
Yeah.
push it to after.
So,
Um, I have about 700 Slack channels, and I got to find the right one. All right, perfect. So, um, I'm back, and I guess the first thing I know this will probably get edited out, but I got to say, like an hour in, we are like, I think it's going
cracking
pretty
stuff.
well.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I don't know yet for sure, but I almost feel like at the end of this, this probably might just be like an interruption before the beginning of the second part. Like,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
like there's a lot, and a lot of it is interesting stuff that I feel like people would want to hear.
Good. Well, let's do it.
So, yeah. Okay. So to refocus, the last thing you said a second ago was that you watched a bunch of videos and you said that it was an important thing. Now, my piece of context, my piece of pushback, my piece of question would be, not all of the information that's online is high quality. Not all the information online is even correct.
No.
So, did you realize as you were watching it that some information is crap? Did you realize that some information was amazing? Did you make any mistakes and follow an instruction of a guy that was, well, not to be like sexist, but of a man, woman, or other? Did you see any content, any information online that was not that did not help your journey, or that even might have set you back?
Um.
And the reason I ask, by the way, is this: there are a lot of people that go online to look for information, and they
Yeah.
are hit with a tidal wave of videos. If you search Amazon on YouTube, you will come up with 175,000 videos. And some of them will be, look at me in front of my fancy sports car, and you can get this too. And there'll
Yep.
be some of it from a guy that's giving you advice that's 7 years old, and there will be some of it which is absolutely on point and evergreen. Now, I'm wondering, you ran into that tidal wave, I'm sure, as soon as you did your first searches. How did
100%.
you swim? How did you swim through it?
Yeah, so I got real specific on my searches. So when it came down to it, I had subjects that I needed to learn, listing a product, right? So I would go in and type in not selling on Amazon because that's where you get all the garbage. But when you strictly go in, adding a listing to my Amazon seller account, uh, you know, advertising my first product on Amazon. There are people out there who are giving just tremendous information on how to do that. And ad agencies are out there, such as yourself, doing that, right? I mean, there's certain um, uh, folks that are out there that are truly trying to help um, educate and not have you go spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on advertising that you otherwise wouldn't because you've completely made a mistake and advertised in the wrong spot or wrong category or whatever. When you're really searching for that right tutorial on how to do things, I will say Amazon's University is very good. Amazon University is very good, but for a step-by-step process on whatever the subject is, going in and searching specifically for that subject should net you a better result than just starting from the I want to sell on Amazon and muddling through the Ferrari podcast or whatever.
Yeah, the Lamborghini guys are more interesting to me anyway.
Yeah, I've never met a Lamborghini guy that's sold on Amazon, just for clarification, but maybe there are, maybe they exist out there. But the ones that I know of are usually the ones that are that have and if they do have a Lamborghini, it's because they busted it, not because they found a product and next month have a
No,
Lamborghini.
I'll tell you, I know a good number of the top 100 sellers on Amazon. I know them personally in different contexts,
Yep.
and I don't think a single one of them drives a Ferrari or Lamborghini.
No.
There are a lot of Porsches. There are a lot of G wagons. For some reason, G wagons are highly represented in that category. But I don't know anybody who drives either of those types of cars.
Yeah.
Most commonly, once they get like that first fancy piece of car, um, the next investments are real estate.
Yeah.
When that money comes in, if you have acquired that money thoughtfully,
Mhm.
your next investments are most typically real estate. That's probably a whole other world. What to do once you've made a few bucks?
Once you've made it, yeah.
Somebody should make a video on that. But yeah, nobody is using their money to buy a Lamb. Very few
No,
people are using it to buy a Lamborghini.
no. I'd suggest I drive a Silverado, and uh, I suggest sticking with that for a little while until you've really found success. And if you got time to go buy a Lamborghini or Porsche or whatever out there, then you've definitely hit the success on Amazon for sure, because it takes a lot of work and effort.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you did a lot of searches. I would say that if somebody's listening to this, among all the other great things here, I would say a very simple, specific thing is when you search for information on Amazon, be hyper specific. That would be what I
Yep.
take away from that piece. Add as many words as you can. Try to describe as much as you can the thing you're trying to do, not in
Yep.
general about selling.
Yep.
Um, but aside from that, would you say, I imagine you did a lot of these searches. There's a lot of things to do. I imagine you did a lot of these searches, watched a lot of videos. Would you say there are any specific channels that came up more frequently? Any individual content creators? Any hosts or channels that came up pretty frequently and were great?
Yeah, I mean, I still remember. So the first couple of videos I watched were helium-10 videos. I remember those being the ones that at the time were highly useful, and actually kind of while pitching their software, they really did go into sort of the how-tos on things. So I'll tell you, they had great content. I can't speak specifically to anyone. In general, I know there's a ton out there that have really put their time and effort into teaching, but nothing specific off the top of my head that I can speak to in terms of people. But the specific search is where it's at.
That's pretty. I gotta say that's an interesting answer to me. In most cases, when I go down my own rabbit holes,
Yeah,
there's a lot of times where I'll see a same person pop up a few times, and that leads me to dive into the rest of what they do, and
yeah,
I almost become like a devotee of that person to some
yep,
extent.
yeah,
There are definitely people who I look at them and I say, you taught me a lot,
yep.
and like I'll actually go up to them and I'll tell them something like that.
I did the same thing with the helium-10 guy. I walked up and I said, you were the reason I was able to put my first product up."
Wait,
you know,
so there are two Helium 10 guys that have put up the most content. Do you remember
yeah.
which one it was?
It's the main guy. He's been there forever. I can't remember
There's
his
two main
name.
guys that have been there forever.
Oh, it's the guy that wears the ball caps all the time and the jerseys.
Got it. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So, although you don't remember his name, you are talking about Bradley Sutton.
yeah. That's it. Yeah,
Okay, there is
yeah,
some. I wanted like to hear. I didn't want to like put a name in your head, so I was
yeah,
curious. But
yeah.
yeah.
He was like a celebrity to me when I met him the first time, just because I was like, I didn't know a clue what I was doing. I needed all the help I could, and he didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
it, but I spent a Saturday night, him and I, learning Amazon. That was the cool part about meeting him in person. Was neat.
It's funny. Like I've met him in person a bunch of times. I know
Yeah,
him socially. I know him through Amazon circles. In an interesting universe, my first office building was a place that he also spent a lot of time in years before I did. So
nice.
we have like a bunch of interesting connections, and although it probably sounds weird, I'm sure he would be tickled to find out that he spent a Saturday night with you at one point
Well,
in the past.
as weird as that sounds, it is what it is.
There are a lot weirder things that people do on Saturday
That's right.
nights, so you're
That's right.
you're far from having to worry about your political aspirations being dashed because of that Saturday night.
Absolutely.
That's not your downfall.
No,
But
absolutely not.
right, so Bradley Sutton was great.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Helium 10. Without saying Helium 10, I mean it might be the answer, but I imagine that as part of your work you're using software.
Yeah.
Is there a specific software that was an enormous help to you? and maybe connect it to that. Today, you do a good amount of business.
Yep.
You know, we don't have to talk about a specific number, but I know the number. It's a good number. As a person that sees a lot of accounts, it's a good number. But again, not the point. The question is there a piece of software that helped you a lot early on? And separate from that, now that it's further on, what
Mhm.
does your software set look like? I mean, I imagine
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
doing everything with just inside Seller Central.
No. So I'll actually reverse it. I'll give you a product I wish I had a few years ago that I have now that's changed things. So, we because we sell a lot of other manufacturers' products, we have set up a repricer. So I've actively gone out and found a repricer company that suits us very well with just dynamic repricing and data and all the sort of bells and whistles that come with it. It does have a learning curve, but I wish I would have had a repricer, almost years before I started, or not years before I started, but years when we first started this thing. I wish I would have had a repricer. That's for sure. And almost from the beginning, we had the data tools, the Helium 10s and the Jungle Scouts and all that good stuff. We had those tools. I use an ad agency. Now we didn't at the beginning. I certainly think that using an ad agency is huge because there's so much to learn when it comes to ads. You can mess that thing up as you can lose a lot of money if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I did. I'm not going to say I did. I might have lost a few dollars trying to do it myself. But at the end of the day, if you can find that expertise, that can really help elevate sales in a quick way.
Oh
So
yeah. Which repricer did you end up with, by the way? And separate to that, did you try a few, or were you just lucky that the first one you landed on was the one you ended up with that was perfect?
Yeah, so tried a few, and we went with one that was a little bit more robust, a little bit more expensive, but a little bit more robust from a data standpoint. We currently use FeedVisor, and FeedVisor has been very good for again, obviously the repricer, but also for from a data side, just understanding sort of where our sales are coming from, our profitability, our just everything that really kind of falls into needing to know at in the weeds level and a micro level. That software has really helped us along nicely. So if we're
Now
going to talk
you
about one,
don't. Yeah, sorry,
okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know people that use FeedVisor for their ad management. You're
Mhm,
not using that part of it, right? You are strictly
mhm.
using it for managing pricing, and
Correct.
then you handle ads separately.
And we
Did
handle
they
that.
ever discuss with you anything to do with advertising, or are they just like, okay, this
Of
is
course.
what you do, we're fine with it?
Of course, they wouldn't be good salespeople if they didn't. But ultimately, I'll tell you, I have found that in the Amazon world, while it sounds great to have all your eggs in a basket, have one company doing everything for you. I tried that once, and I found that not everybody does everything great, right? So you really have to muddle your way through who does that specific thing great. Whether it's advertising, whether it's data aggregation, whether it's profitability reports, repricers, all those things that really make the account excel is not usually done by one person.
I can't. I
If
can't.
they do exist, I haven't found them.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I'm thinking I can't believe you didn't mention Merchant Spring, because when I set you up with Merchant Spring, your eyes popped open at the data it gave you, if you
Yeah,
remember.
well, it is. It's huge because and I just actually kind of forgot to bring that in, but
Right,
you
and
know,
I'm not meaning it to, like, on
hey,
one hand, I love
that's
those
good.
guys and I love mentioning them, but
Yeah.
that, like, we've been working together for a while, and
Oh yeah.
that was like a
I'll,
big
I'll
eye
tell
opener for
you.
you.
I'll tell you that one tool really helped me because what you look up, and when we have a lot of SKUs, and when you have a lot of SKUs, you lose time in understanding what profitability looks like at that micro level, and almost immediately implementing that piece of data into that software into our daily routine, identified some product that we were not as profitable as we thought we were, or even negative profit on where we were. So we were able to take almost immediate action on a lot of those, and really we made advertising changes almost immediately due to that. I mean, at the end of the day, the way I would describe Amazon is data driven operation. Yes, it's about distributing products to customers within 2 days or 1 day or 3 hours or whatever they're promising these days. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about data and understanding it, and from a financial standpoint, from a volume standpoint, growth, everything is truly from a keyword standpoint. I mean, all that stuff it's all data driven, every aspect of it.
Oh boy, that leads me to maybe the most irrelevant question, but one I toss about occasionally.
Okay.
So you just said keyword.
Yeah.
Now, I say it as keyword. When you landed on that, did you ever hear anybody say it as keyword? Or did you ever hear anybody say it as keyword? Or was that just how you read it, and then that's the first time you said it out loud?
Is this like a
It's
potato
not a gotcha
type of
question.
thing?
It's just it's an I'm curious question,
Yeah.
because to my mind, and for a long amount of time, I only heard people say it as keywords.
Well, it's
And
keyword. It's a keyword. I guess it'd be, yeah, it's keyword. Keyword.
yeah, keywords. I
I
mean,
probably just said it
I
wrong.
say it also as like one word, but
Yeah.
every time I hear someone say it the way you say it, my brain has to like take a step and say, "Oh, he's saying that word,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder how'd you say that? It's like
Yeah.
tomato and tomato. I know you're from
Yeah.
England or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
how did everybody else get to say the same word? Like, or
Well,
gifs and gifs, at some
yeah.
point somebody heard one or heard the other
Yeah.
or imagined it as they read it.
I've never really thought about it too hard, but it is that it's the, it is key. It's keyword, but
Wait,
specifically,
I got to do something as we speak right now.
what you
It's
got?
time to like fire up Google and how to pronounce keyword.
Nah, let's do it. She's going to tell us it's keyword.
No, maybe I'm going to break it because people both way. No, it's keyword. All right, let's wait. Let's see if I can. Is there a
So
thing
did I
that
say it
plays
right,
it?
or did you?
Oh no, I said it right. I'm gonna put a link to this. I don't know how to share audio on this thing, but it was pretty clear in which it says, "Oh, well, actually,
Word.
let's see if we can play with this thing."
Okay.
Screen layout. Does this work? Nah, it's not letting me share. I don't know. All right. Anyway, well, let me try one more time. Share screen. How to pronounce keyword. Also share tab audio. That is okay. So you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
It says keyword and
Keyword. Keyword.
Keyword. That's what I said. Sounds
no,
like
you
it.
said key. No, you
Keyword.
said keyword.
That's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, completely
It's,
irrelevant.
I
But
live in the South, so maybe that was part of the
yes, well,
Southern twang coming through.
I'll let it. I'll let you give it that reason. But yes.
Okay.
So when I talk about what we discussed, we talked about the correct way to pronounce keyword. That's going to be the headline.
The
Yeah.
most productive thing we will do all day.
Yeah, I hope not. I've still got a bunch of hours. I need them to be more
Yeah.
productive than this. Yes.
Like
All right. So, oh my God, we covered a lot, but it's also
yeah.
been a good segment of time.
Yeah.
Let's sort of let's say this. I'm going to say that, Matt, it has been an amazing an amazing time talking with you about your journey. I definitely would like to continue this conversation in the very near future because there's about 1,100 questions I haven't asked yet. And as you can see, I'm not scared to ask questions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how to end this off because I haven't really done too many of these interviews yet, and I don't. I'm pretty sure you don't have a thing to pitch or to sell, and I'm also pretty sure that you don't want the whole world pestering you with questions, or do you? Do you want
I
to
don't
share
care.
your contact information?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
What's the right way for a person that's also at a Fortune 300 to reach out to you to learn how to get on Amazon?
yeah. I mean, if you find me on LinkedIn, I guess, that
Yeah.
LinkedIn will probably be the best spot to find me to have that conversation.
All right, man. I think we're good then. Matt,
Perfect.
I appreciate the time. Like I said, I definitely look forward to talking with you again soon. And
Yep.
everybody who's listening, thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Abe.